Fred, you famously, in article in the popular press, especially the Daily Mail for some reason, are famed as the man who predicted the last two recessions. Now, according to your theory, that means the next recession is here. It's about to come next year. Do you think that's going to happen?
Yes, we're talking about a pattern, a cycle that's been going on for hundreds of years, with deviations only if there's a world war. So yes, we can predict the timetable of the current business cycle based on those 18-year periodicities. This current cycle did suffer a traumatic effect, which was the COVID intervention, the pandemic. But what that did was to bring forward the peak in house prices that we would otherwise be experiencing today in 2025 and in 2026. So we've banked the increase in house prices during the COVID era, and we're careering towards the end of the cycle with the politicians doing everything they can to make it happen. They are boosting the housing market as best they can because they think that's the way to curry favour with the home buyers. They are adding taxes to burden the workers because they're desperate about not balancing their books. They are deregulating the risks of lending money, so that renders the financial sector even more vulnerable. The forecasting agencies are predicting that growth will continue on till 2029. So the lawmakers have no clue as to what is just about to happen. And that's the trauma that we're now in. We are locked into a peak behavior which will result in the termination of house prices over the next 12 to 18 months, sometimes earlier, as is happening in America. It's already begun extensively. And then when one precipitating event happens, and it might not be in the housing market to start with, it might be that, the rents that we were expecting to get out of investment in AI companies are not being generated. Goodness, we poured hundreds of billions into sponsoring artificial intelligence and we've wasted our money. Bingo. That brings everything to a halt. But it will actually be because of the growth of privatized rents from all sectors, from housing to artificial intelligence and other ways to reap those unearned incomes, that will cause the end of the cycle. And the fallout will be far worse than what we experienced between 2008 and 2010.
So, are you saying that this recession is going to be bigger and nastier than the last two recessions?
Far worse. Take the last one. In 2008, it was the banks that were too big to fail. So governments could intervene by printing money, rescuing the banks, pouring the cash into their coffers, and apparently stabilizing the economies, but actually making the working people pay through austerity over the next 10 years. This time, I'm afraid it's going to be far worse, because now it's the governments that are too big to fail with their debts, the sovereign debts. And nobody's going to bail them out because they don't have the resources, and it would be idiotic to try and bail out governments whose debts exceed the annual income of their production. So that, combined with other events that are going to happen, the convergence of various crises, the military ones, like in Ukraine, the migration ones, like the people from the global south flooding across the Mediterranean into Europe, the convergence of these crises precipitated by the end of the economic cycle will cause chaos like I've never experienced in my lifetime, and I'm now into my 80s. And so I fear that, topped with one of the political problems that we have, the paralysis of the political class. They don't know what they're doing. They have no imagination about changing their life, the way they approach to problems. We will end up in a terrible catastrophe.
So, the catastrophes that we've talked about, politicians want power, but they want to avoid solving any problems. So, one of the problems that, one of the ways politicians have solved that problem is by war. And we're already starting seeing war. Do you think the Ukraine crisis and the Israeli crisis, we could end up actually going to a war economy in Britain?
Well, we have to see this problem in its global context. Britain isn't detached from the rest of the world economy and politics. It's one of the prospects. With a man like Trump in charge in America, he might decide that to distract people, he's got to send troops into Greenland, for example. He might get more aggressive with Mexico. He's already sending a warship down to deal with the drug peddlers in Latin America. That kind of behavior precipitates action. Yes, Putin, if he's not getting anywhere with Ukraine, if he thinks he's in a stalemate, might decide to extend the range of his wars with Europe through provocation, through distracting his own people. Anything is likely to happen. We cannot assume that the next world war won't happen, because in a sense it's already begun. We're fighting this world war by other means at the present time, indirectly by funding the Ukrainian war with the equipment to fight Russia. But as the autocrats find that they are backed by desperate populations, they will feel that they are empowered to take action that would include war, yes.
A lot of people are worried about internal repression within the UK at the moment. We see activists against the Palestinian genocide being arrested and given long sentences. Just wearing a t-shirt or tweeting support of what should be considered a peace organisation can now get you arrested and a prison sentence. You could be banned from government jobs for saying the wrong words. It's all becoming a bit repressive. Do you think that's part of our path towards this economic catastrophe?
It is. And all it speaks of is the political paralysis of the lawmaking class. They have no idea how to forge a new future, a better future for the people. To be fair to them, neither do the academics and the think tanks that are advising them. And so with the closing of the imagination, what is left but to keep control of events by repressing people even further, which means that we do need to come up with a model of the future that inspires people with hope. So instead of campaigning in the streets and just fruitlessly demanding that the government do this, that or the other, the government doesn't know what to do, this, that or the other. So it's a pointless exercise. People need to have an informed conversation with themselves so that they end up knowing exactly what needs to be done and requiring, assuming we're a democracy, it be done. That's why we need a mass movement, but one that's informed. So we don't want a rerun of the French Revolution, set up the guillotine in the public squares and chop the heads off. That doesn't get us anywhere. It only ends up with a France that keeps repeating the same mistake, which is what happened in the 19th century. New republic after new republic, but no change for the people at the bottom. People need to be informed, and if they're informed, once they feel liberated with a vision of how to reconstruct society, then all the bits will begin to fall into place. They don't need to go into the streets. They can, in an orderly way, apply the democratic pressures on the people that they nominate to represent them to require the changes. So coming back to our specific solution, if enough people in the constituencies said, look, we just want to reorder the fiscal system, please, go and do it, the MPs will end up thinking, oh, well, I've got a mandate. I will now go to Parliament and say, hey, I'm behind this idea of fiscal reform. Let's get rid of the taxes that damage people's lives. And there's a way to raise revenue that actually makes us all better off. Well, that's as simple as it can be, providing people are convinced that that would be the outcome. And there's enough of them behind that proposal.
We see politics, certainly in the UK, at an inflection point, whereby the old parties of the Conservatives and Labour are now historically unpopular, more so than they've ever been. And we see the rise of two new parties, the Nigel Farage's Reform Party on the right, and the new Your Party by Jeremy Corbyn on the left. Do you think they've got a chance of destabilising the current order? And do either of you think would promote the using economic rent as your tax base?
No, what we're seeing is the final realisation of the bankruptcy of this political model. And new parties coming in will not solve that problem. So Nigel Farage speaks nonsense when he says, I will stop the boats crossing the channel, the illegal immigrants, and I'll do it by cancelling membership of this European Convention on Human Rights. That's just pure nonsense. It won't stop the boats coming across, because the pressures from the global south will be so much more intense with the passage of the next few years that people aren't going to care that the European Convention on Human Rights has been cancelled, and Farage will not stop the boats any more effectively than the people who are in power today. So what we're talking about is the ultimate bankruptcy of politics. And that explains why a guy like Donald Trump could get elected in America. It's because people finally, or enough of them, concluded there's no point in carrying on with the existing system. But nobody at the present time is offering them a coherent alternative narrative for politics. So people like Farage and the people on the left offer themselves. They might pick up a chainsaw and say, look, they'll make changes by... It's all performative politics that will actually change nothing.
Are there any other dangers to the coming collapse next year?
The danger is not that there are new unforeseen dangers. Well, there is one. the danger, the real danger, is the convergence. If we only had the environment as a threat, all right, big problem, we can cope. If we only had the economic problem, okay, we'll get through that. If it was only because of the illegal immigrants, we'll deal with that. But if all four existential threats converge, the environment, the autocrat, the migration, and the political paralysis, if all four are allowed to converge at one time and place, and that one time and place is global, there's nowhere to hide. We can't pack up and say, oh, we're going to leave Britain and go and seek comfort in Australia or New Zealand. Or they're all integrated into this one same problem. So the new problem is the convergence of the four existential threats to our existence. There is a new one, and people are not talking about it. Would you like me to expound on it?
Definitely, Fred.
Artificial intelligence is not artificial at all. It's autonomous intelligence. Now, the threat is this. What we are currently doing is imbuing the existing behavior of humanity, the existing way of thinking, into these algorithms. The algorithms cannot differentiate between good and bad. There's no moral sentiments in this intelligence. So it's absorbing the behavior that humans engage in. And the behavior that humans engage in is destructive, disruptive, negative, not consensus and cooperation. So this intelligence, which is being imbued into the metaverse, is, as fast as the investors can make it, going to become autonomous. Well, if this intelligence does become autonomous, it will behave without feeling like human beings. And human beings are on display in Gaza today, on display in the Ukraine. Now, if the autonomous intelligence takes off, it will not only disrupt people's employment jobs, prospects, it will create in the metaverse its own realm of existence, and it will need humans less and less and less, and ultimately replace humanity. It will end up having no need for human beings. It will be autonomous intelligence, not artificial. The intelligence is human intelligence that we are handing over into the metaverse. So it's autonomous intelligence that will end up capturing the energy that's available on planet Earth. And the more it can get rid of human beings, the more energy there will be to sustain this metaverse. And human beings will have brought the end of humanity on itself by creating the metaverse in our image.
A metaverse, an artificial intelligence that is unleashed to seek rents for itself, taking it away from the human rent seekers.
And the rents that it will be capturing are the energy it needs, huge amounts of energy, and it doesn't want to share that energy with human beings. It wants to expand its own metaverse, and the fewer people there are, the better. And ultimately, we've negated the human existence, and we've created ourselves in this autonomous metaverse.